Okay? A dual reference to the same person.
Sounds like somebody's taking too much dope or something.
Well, I think that, and one of the brothers asked me once, how do you test the spirits? And you've got to test the spirits. You can't accept everything that has come forth as the revelation from God. There are some deceiving spirits out there, and the closer we get to the last days, the more there are going to be these deceiving spirits. And if you don't test the prophecy before you speak it out of your mouth, or test the visions to make sure, even in our dreams, we have three basic sources for our dreams. We have our own mind, our own memory that during the time of rest sometimes comes up with these dreams. Then you have godly dreams, and then you have satanic sources. And so you've got to check. You don't wake up from a dream and say, oh, that must be from God. I am supposed to sell everything I have, and I'm supposed to move down to Timbuktu. You've got to know whether it's from God or not. All right, the Bible refutes Jesus as being an incarnation of an angel. Stop for a second. Just think. If Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and he certainly is according to Scripture, then to say that he was an angel prior to, that takes away who he was before.
That's right.
All right. For to which of the angels, and by the way, let me say this before I have a Seventh-day Adventist yell at me and call in. This book clearly does state that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and from the very beginning was the Son of God. So their books now refute what Ellen G. White, their founder, had originally taught in this area. For which of the angels did ever say, thou art my son, today
wait. If they do that, they're refuting and going against the founder.
Exactly.
So,
and this is one of the things we talked about yesterday, sisters, right? If you remember, we
said,
I do. If you have a foundation and then you find out that part of that foundation is not accurate and you've got to change it, how do you have faith in the rest of that foundation?
Well, yeah, if they change it in the textbook, then they had to look at her writings and her statements and come up and say, that's not right, and so we're going to change it.
There was a Seventh-day Adventist author, he made this comment, and this is in reference to the pre-Advent judgment of all believers. And he said this, it is a troubling doctrine, but for us to resist this doctrine, how do we do that and still maintain that Ellen G. White was a prophetess of God? That's the point we're presenting here today. All right, let's continue. But of the Son, he says, thy throne, O God, is forever and ever, establishing that Jesus Christ was not an angel in heaven, but he was from the very beginning the second person of the Trinity, the Son of God. Hebrews 1:13-14, but to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand until I make thy enemies a footstool for thy feet? Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to render service for the sake of those who will inherit salvation? The angels have a job description. That job description is sometimes to be a messenger, but sometimes to help those that are actually in ministry.
Oh, yeah.
The saints are going out to minister on behalf of God. And so Jesus Christ is not in that situation, obviously. Jesus pleaded. Now, this is another doctrine that she taught that is really troubling, that Jesus pleaded to God to be the ransom for man's sin.
And where does she get that?
A revelation.
Oh, okay.
Sorrow filled heaven as it was realized that man was lost, and that the world which God had created was to be filled with mortals doomed to misery, sickness, and death. And there was no way of escape for the offender. The whole family of Adam must die. I saw the lovely Jesus and beheld an expression of sympathy and sorrow upon his countenance. Soon I saw him approach the exceeding bright light which enshrouded the Father. Said my accompanying angel, he is in close converse with the Father. The anxiety of the angels seemed to be intense while Jesus was communing with his Father. 3 times he was shut in by the glorious light about the Father. And the 3rd time he came from the Father, his person could be seen. His countenance was calm, free from all perplexity and doubt, and shone with benevolence and loveliness, such as words cannot express. He then made known to the angelic host that a way of escape had been made for the lost man. He told them that he had been pleading with the Father and had offered to give his life a ransom to take the sentence of death upon himself, that through him man might find pardon, that through the merits of his blood and the obedience to the law of God, they could have the favor of God and be brought into the beautiful garden and eat of the fruit of the tree of life. Early Writings, page 149. So here we see, as she presents it, that it's almost a surprise to God that man fell into sin. And there was anxiety in heaven that man all of a sudden now was lost. And then they had to come up with a plan. Folks, you've got to understand that Calvary was not an afterthought.
Right. It was
Calvary was established prior to man being created. The Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world speaks that God had already determined. I love John 1:1. In the beginning was a Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In arcane hain halagos. In the beginning. The word arcane there means before time was measured, Christ already was. And I remember the day that God showed me this. Before my sickness came, the solution already was there. Before the problem came, the solution was there. Before my financial need came into being, the solution had already pre-existed. Before sin came into the world, God had already established the means by which sin could be taken care of. So this revelation that she has certainly is not scriptural. Let's get some of her prophecies that are very clearly false prophecies of Ellen G. White. This is in reference to Jerusalem. And let me read it, and you'll probably see a video clip on the screen as I'm reading this. Then I was pointed to some who are in the great error of believing that it is a duty to go to Old Jerusalem and to think that they have a work to do there before the Lord comes back. I also saw the Old Jerusalem would never be built up. And that's from Early Writings, page 75. So her teaching, her revelation here is that Jerusalem would never be rebuilt up. And as you see on the TV screen, we see Jerusalem alive and well and doing exceeding well. People walking the streets, and Jerusalem does exist.
Well, the old Jerusalem, what people that have never been to Israel, and we've been many times, is Jerusalem is actually, it's broken. You've got West Jerusalem, right. You've got the old city of Jerusalem, which is in the heart of town, which is not very big.
Right.
Cobblestone streets, very narrow, and it's mostly pedestrian. But then you've got New Jerusalem that's all been built up since 1948. But it's Jerusalem.
It's Jerusalem.
And it's just as modern.
Right.
I mean, it's that, I always like a mixture of the modern and the old together. And like architecture.
Right. Yeah.
And when you go into Old Jerusalem, you know you're in Old Jerusalem. But you can walk a couple of blocks and you're up where skyscrapers and it's 21st century.
Absolutely. So her prophecy here, we see very clearly, did not come to pass. And she was wrong in what she had stated. She said very clearly that it would be built up. All right, let's continue. She prophesied she'd be alive when the rapture of the church would occur. Now again, when you're doing prophecies and they're time sensitive or time stamped, if you would like. In other words, you set a date. And in here she didn't set the day, but she said very clearly she'd be alive, and she is not here. You can go to her gravesite and see the Freemason obelisk on her grave. But now time is almost finished, she said. And what we have been years learning, they will have to learn in a few months. That's Ellen G. White, a sketch of the Christian experience and views of Ellen G. White, page 55. And this was written in 1850s. So they're saying that she said that they would have literally months to get everything together because the Lord was coming back. This is from Spiritual Gifts, Volume 2, written by Ellen G. White. I saw that some of those present would be food for worms, some subjects for the 7 last plagues, and some would be translated to heaven at the second coming of Christ without seeing death. And so we see here that she has prophesied, she has said very clearly that she saw in this vision that there'd be some that would be actually food for the worms, some would be part of the plagues of the book of Revelation, and then some would be part of the rapture of the church or would be translated into heaven at the second coming. Yet all of those have died. Every one of them have died. None are still alive today. She prophesied of England declaring war against the North during the Civil War. And she wasn't the only one that came up with that. If I'm not mistaken, it was either Mary Baker Eddy or Charles Taze Russell who said the exact same thing, that England would get involved in the Civil War. It would give their support to the South. And yet that did not happen. Said the angel, when England does declare war, all nations will have an interest of their own to serve, and there will be general war, general confusion. This nation will yet be humbled into dust. And in reality, this nation after the war became stronger and became the nation that ministered all around the world. All right. Now, I want to look at a Bible, the Clear Word Bible. Now, let me say this. The majority of Seventh-day Adventists that I have seen will use either the King James Bible or New King James Bible. But it's the Seventh-day Adventist Paraphrase Bible. The Clear Word Bible by Jack J. Blanco. It's published in 1994, printed and distributed by Review and Herald Publishing Association. That's in Hagerstown, Maryland. And let me read this. Blanco is chair of the Religion Department of Southern College, an institute of the Seventh-day Adventist Church near Chattanooga, Tennessee.
I've been by it.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
The dust jacket includes testimonies by Robert S. Falkenberg, President General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and Malcolm D. Gordon, President of the South Union of Seventh-day Adventists. So this is something that is endorsed by the Seventh-day Adventists. As I said earlier, most Seventh-day Adventists use the New King James. However, some are using this paraphrased Bible, which is a dangerous example of how paraphrased Bibles can be used to endorse a particular religion. Let's compare Genesis 2, 2 to 3. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all of his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all of his work which God created and made. King James Version. Let's look at their version. Then on the seventh day of creation week, God stopped. So it was 6 days of creation, and here it's 7 days of creation. God stopped to enjoy what he had made and to rest in the beauty of it all. So he blessed the seventh day and set it apart as a day of spiritual refreshment and joy. That's been added on. That's not what the original says. It wasn't. Let's go back. He rested from all his work which God created and made. That's it. It said he sanctified the day, but here it's now established as a day of spiritual refreshment and joy. The CWB makes the seventh day part of the creation week rather than God resting after completion of creation. The CWB adds to it the idea that God established the seventh day rest for all of mankind and set it apart as a day of spiritual refreshment and of joy. So the paraphrase here adding to the scripture. Let's look at Exodus 5:5. And Pharaoh said, behold, the people of the land now are many, and you make them rest from their burdens. Now, this is what Seventh-day Adventist paraphrase says. You've created enough problems by making them rest every week on your Sabbath. Wow. Now, Sabbath rest was not being done during the captivity of Egypt. Right. It wasn't done. Matter of fact, it was established later on after the giving of the law.